You know, I've been thinking a lot lately about those moments in life that feel like they're hanging by a thread. The ones where you're so close to turning around and walking away, and everything inside you is screaming to just let it go. But something, maybe it's stubbornness, maybe it's fate, keeps you there. And looking back, that split-second choice ends up rewriting your whole story. That's what happened to me with an audition I almost walked out of. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't in some fancy Hollywood studio. It was just another day in New York back in the early 2000s when I was scraping by, questioning if any of this acting dream was worth the endless grind. Let me take you back there. I was in my 30s, living in a cramped apartment in Brooklyn that smelled like old takeout and regret. I'd been at this for years. Graduated from Bennington College with all these big ideas about theater and film, but the reality, it was brutal. Audition after audition, and it wasn't just the no thanks that stung. It was the way they looked at me sometimes. I'm 45, and in this industry, that often meant I was typecast before I even opened my mouth. They'd call me in for roles that were basically punchlines. Elves, leprechauns, the quirky sidekick who gets laughed at. I remember one casting director saying, "We need someone diminutive, like I was a prop, not a person." I'd sworn to myself I wouldn't take those parts. I wanted to act, really act, not be the butt of some joke. But turning them down meant starving a little more each month. Bills piled up, friends from school were landing gigs on Broadway or in indie films, and there I was, bartending shifts at a dive bar to pay rent, wondering if I was delusional for thinking I could make it on my terms. That particular morning, I woke up with a headache that felt like a hammer pounding my skull. I'd gotten the call the day before from my agent, some low-budget indie film looking for actors. The script snippet they sent was intriguing. It wasn't stereotypical, at least from what I could tell. The character was complex. A guy named Finn who lives in isolation, dealing with loss and finding unexpected connection. It spoke to me, you know, but I was exhausted. The night before, I'd been up late memorizing lines, second-guessing every word. Self-doubt was my constant companion back then. Who are you kidding, Peter? I think they'll see your height, and that's all they'll see. Another door slammed. I almost didn't go, rolled over in bed, stared at the ceiling cracks that looked like a map of my failures. But I dried myself up, threw on a wrinkled shirt, and took the subway into Manhattan. The audition was in this dingy office building off Times Square, the kind with flickering fluorescent lights and elevators that creak like they're about to give out. The waiting room was packed, actors flipping through scripts, some pacing, others staring blankly at their phones. The air was thick with that mix of coffee breath, cheap cologne, and desperation. Signed in, found a chair in the corner and just sat there, feeling the weight of it all pressing down. My mind was racing. Why am I here? I've done this 100 times. They'll smile politely, say thanks, and call the next guy. I thought about my parents back in New Jersey, how they'd supported me, but probably worried I was wasting my life. I thought about the student loans, the odd jobs, waiting tables, office temp work, anything to keep the lights on. And then there was the deeper stuff, the stuff I didn't talk about much, the isolation of being different, the stares on the street, the way rejection felt personal, like the world was saying, "You don't fit." I was this close to standing up and leaving. My hand was on my backpack, feet shifting under the chair. The door to the casting room opened, and they called the name before mine. I could hear the muffled voices inside, laughter, then silence. My heart was pounding, palms sweaty. Just go, I told myself. Walk out now. Save yourself the humiliation. It would have been so easy. No one would know. I could head back to Brooklyn, pour a drink, and tell myself tomorrow would be different. Maybe it was the quiet voice in my head, the one that had gotten me through college theater productions and off-Broadway flops. Or maybe it was just sheer fatigue. I was too tired to even make the effort to live. I closed my eyes and breathed, remembering why I started this in the first place. The rush of being on stage, losing myself in a character, connecting with an audience in that raw, human way. Then they called my name. Peter Dinklage? Stood up, legs feeling like lead, and walked in. The room was sparse. A long table with a couple of producers, a director named Tom McCarthy scribbling notes, a video camera humming in the corner. No frills, no Hollywood sparkle. They handed me the sides again, and I started reading. At first, my voice cracked a bit. Nerves, you know. But as I got into it, playing this character, Finn, something shifted. The words felt real, like they were mine. I poured in the frustration I'd been carrying, the loneliness, the quiet defiance. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. When I finished, there was this beat of silence. Tom looked up, nodded slowly, and said, "That was interesting. Thank you." No big fanfare, just that. I walked out, head down, figuring it was another swing and miss. But a week later, the call came. I'd gotten the part. The film was The Station Agent. It wasn't a blockbuster budget, but it was the role I'd been waiting for. A lead, a real character with depth, not defined by my stature, but elevated by it. We shot it in New Jersey, in this abandoned train station that felt like a metaphor for my life at the time. Forgotten, but full of potential. That movie changed everything. It premiered at Sundance, got rave reviews, and suddenly doors opened. Agents called, scripts came in. It led to Game of Thrones, to Broadway revivals, to a career I could never have imagined back in that waiting room. But more than the success, it was the realization that hit me hardest. That one decision to stay, to push through the doubt, had been a pivot point. Looking back now from where I sit with an Emmy on the shelf and a family that grounds me, I see it so clearly. Life doesn't give you neon signs saying, "This is your moment." It's often in the messiest, most ordinary places when you're at your lowest that the real turning points happen. I almost walked out because I was scared, tired, beaten down. But choosing to stay, that took a quiet courage I didn't know I had. It wasn't about being brave in a loud way. It was about enduring one breath at a time. So if you're out there listening to this and you're on the edge of giving up on a job, a dream, a relationship, remember that story. Persistence isn't always about charging forward. Sometimes it's just not walking away. Timing plays its part, sure, but you have to be there for it to matter. The power of choosing to stay, even when every fiber of you wants to leave, can unlock doors you didn't even know existed. It might just change everything for you too. Thanks for listening. Take care.